I went and saw Babylon, and it's directed by Damien Chazelle, who has directed Whiplash, La La Land, First Man. He did one in 2009 called Guy and Madeline on a Park Bench. I've not yet seen it. It's on my list. I got to get to it at some point. But I'm a big fan of Damien Chazelle, as are most people who are in the film. I think I don't know if anybody hates him. I don't know if he has any like dedicated haters. He might, but yeah, Whiplash is my favorite film of his. But I did love La La Land. I think it's probably my most seen. Yes, it's definitely my most seen movie in theaters. At the time it came out, I was absolutely obsessed with it. I saw it, I think, 9 times in theaters, which is insane. I admit to that. I would never do that again with any movie ever. No matter how much I love the movie. Because there's a movie that came out this year that I thought was better. That I didn't do that to. I saw it 3 times in theaters, which is a lot for me now. A lot for me currently. But, 17-year-old Elijah with, I was working but I didn't have to pay any bills. So I just had a lot of expendable income, and I was only going to school 2 days a week. I just had a lot of time. So I saw that maybe 9 times. But I think that movie is followed by Deadpool. I saw Deadpool a lot, like 6 or 7 times. I think that might be my second most seen movie in the theater, and that's another one where I'm like, why did I do that? I don't know. I was just really into Deadpool at the time. So, yeah, I saw Babylon. Directed by Damien Chazelle. Whiplash is amazing. La La Land's great. First Man, I have to rewatch. I saw it the first time. I thought it was pretty good. It didn't really stick with me a whole lot. I want to rewatch it. I'm wondering if I'd be a bit more charitable to it now, or just feel a little differently. Oh my God, there's a cat under there. Holy fuck. Hi, buddy. I'm sorry, I didn't mean to kick you. I was. Okay. But yeah, so Babylon takes place in the Roaring Twenties, as the in Hollywood, as the film landscape transitions from silent films to talkies, or movies with sound. And we follow 3 primary characters. Manny, played by Diego Calva, this fictional actress Nellie Leroy, played by Margot Robbie, and then I think his name is like Jack Conrad, played by Brad Pitt. And these are all people who experience great growth and triumph, and then all kind of have their rise and fall story in this film. So this movie is a 3-hour long epic. It's Damien Chazelle's version of, a lot of people have compared it to Boogie Nights or Wolf of Wall Street. And it is like that. It's a very long movie with a lot of energy. It moves very fast, and it's funny, or it's a comedy. It might not be funny to you. I liked it. I appreciated the comedy. We can get more into that. But yeah, I mean, it's his, big grand story following a huge ensemble of characters. There are, the movie, like I said, centers around those 3, but there is an ensemble where it kind of follows everybody. And so it goes all over the place. It's also kind of like a musical in that way. Like there's a lot of Broadway shows, or or just musicals in general, where they just follow a big ensemble of characters, and just follows their lives. And so I did not know much about the silent film era at the time. I've seen silent films, not a ton, but a good handful. My favorite one is probably The Hunchback of Notre Dame with Lon Chaney. I really like that one. I'm just very into Hunchback in general. That would be a dream project to work on myself, is like if Disney might do a Hunchback remake or something, but I don't know. I think their version would probably be kind of lame. Anyways, Even though I actually do love the '90s Hunchback as well. Sorry, this is nothing to do with Babylon. Yeah, so it's the silent film era, and yeah, and you know, it's the crazy parties. Hollywood is, you know, it's not, it's like a lawless town, and you know, it's pre-Hays Code, which means that the limitations of what you could show on film weren't as strict, because as a lot of you probably know, the Hays Code was implemented at some point. I don't know if it was in the 50s or 60s. It could have been the 40s. I don't fucking know. I think it was the 50s. I let me here, actually, let's look this up. Hays Code. Released. Oh shit, in the 30s. Okay, between 1934 and 1968. Okay, so the Hays Code was instituted like right before the event, or right after the events of this film. Man, I don't know why I thought it was the 50s, but yeah. So this is pre-Hays Code, which, if for those who don't know, Hays Code was a very strict limitation, or I mean, it was, you know, essentially like film law. In order to get a you know, a theatrical release and distribution and everything, you had to make movies under the Hays Code, and the Hays Code had rules where, you know, obviously no you know, no same-sex couples, no interracial couples. You couldn't portray a lot of themes that were too hardcore. I don't think you could show like domestic abuse or certain problems like drinking and drugs and stuff. So during the Hays Code era, a lot of films had to either shoot around certain things. So a lot of things were just very much left up to implication. It wasn't that you couldn't show queer characters in relationships, it's that you couldn't have queer characters in general. You could just not have any gay characters in your movies. So during this era, there were just no queer characters, or we would get queer coded characters, and that's like a whole other discussion for another day. But that became a thing. If you watch something like Rebel Without a Cause, that has you know, a very popular example of like a queer coded character that would have come out during the Hays Code. So, yeah, interesting Hollywood history. Obviously, a terrible thing that the Hays Code was implemented. But yeah, before that was implemented, you had a lot of really interesting cinema. Hollywood was a pretty progressive place compared to the rest of America. And, you know, you had no problem showing showing a lot of stuff in films. Like, there were prostitutes, there was drugs, there was, you know, a bunch of crazy stuff. There was a pre-code movie I really like, just to give another recommendation, is I think it's called So Big. Essentially, look up anything with Barbara Stanwyck. Barbara Stanwyck she was a great actress, and she was in a lot of pre-Hays. Okay, I just want to... There we go. Yes. Okay, just to show my screen here real quick. This movie, So Big, with Barbara Stanwyck, I genuinely really love this movie. I don't know where you can find it, unfortunately. But I really liked this one. So... interesting film to catch up on. I would, you know, maybe try and look up some other movies from this era. Like I said, it was really cool because you know, filmmakers were, you know, it was a lot more okay to show, or it wasn't against the rules, I should say, to show things such as like prostitution or you know, anything taboo or controversial. Or anything. And So Big came out in 1932, 2 years before it was implemented. So this one actually does have dialogue. It's not a silent film. But yeah. Anyways, to go back to Babylon. Babylon kind of, you know, it documents the final years, I guess, leading up into the Hays Code, and how, you know, the introduction of sound into film changed the culture of Hollywood. And, you know, you see that change represented in its ensemble of characters, but primarily the main three as they kind of navigate this new system. And I think to get to the actual meat of the film, um, when let's start with the performances, because the performances are pretty easy to talk about. It's an all-star cast. I mean, like the actors I did say. You also have Tobey Maguire. You have Catherine Waterston, who I really enjoy in everything I see her in. There's a great PJ Byrne performance in here. He's in like 2 scenes, but he's great. And then you have a bunch of other either cameos or whatever. Olivia Wilde shows up for a scene, and Lucas Haas is another really solid performance in here. All the performances across the board are very good. Margot Robbie especially, she is incredible in her physicality with the performance, because obviously during the silent film era, you didn't have your voice, you would just use your body, and so the performances had to be incredibly theatrical and physical and represent a lot. On top of that, even outside of the scenes where they're shooting the film, Margot Robbie plays a much larger than life character where she's an actress who, before she's even a star in the film, she tells everybody that she's a star, and it's interesting. She feels a little bit like Harley Quinn. It's like kind of a it is kind of a combination of other characters that Margot Robbie has played, and this feels like a sort of a culmination of a lot of her specific talents as an actress. I read somewhere that I think it was like in the trivia on IMDb that this was originally the character was going to be Clara Bow, or Bow, or however you pronounce it, Clara Bow, who was a real actress. And I think it was Emma Stone was originally cast in that role. But Emma Stone dropped out, Margot Robbie came in, and then I guess Damien Chazelle rewrote the role to be a fictional character that Margot Robbie could play, and it was for her. And I don't know. I'm really interested why that decision was made, like what it was about Margot Robbie that made him make it into a fictional character. But she is supposed to play essentially a kind of a version of Clara Bow, but it's a fictional character now. And so Brad Pitt, he's an older actor at this point, but he is the biggest star in Hollywood at the time that this movie takes place, and he's the star of the silent film era. And we also get to see how the transition to sound affects him too over the course of the film. And with his character, it's a bit more tragic. The whole thing is kind of tragic, but I think there is one scene in particular between him and a character played by Jean Smart that I think is and if you see the movie, you'll know exactly what scene I'm talking about. I thought that was such an interesting scene, and for the first half of the film, it's man, okay, sorry, I'm a little like scattered. This is getting more into scripting stuff, I guess, too, as well as the acting. I'm just gonna say Margot Robbie stand out here as an actress. Physicality was amazing. There's scenes where she has to do a lot of just really intense shit. She has to do like slapstick comedy for a scene. She's dancing in this other scene. On this other scene, she's like crying, just like turning it off and then on. And then there's so much asked of her in this movie, and she is up to the task in every sense. And then even outside of those scenes, her character is so larger than life, and she's so interesting. There's she has the comedy, she can do the tragedy, she can do everything. Margot Robbie truly is a fantastic actress. Brad Pitt does his shit. He's also amazing. It's pretty standard for him to be pretty good. And I don't think it's anything like I don't think anybody's gonna be like seeing a new side of him that we haven't seen, but it's still really good. And then Diego Calva, just to name the 3 leads, he was also very, very good. He kind of grounds the whole film. He just very solid in this movie, and he's a good he has good chemistry with obviously Margot Robbie. They're like the main leads. But I think he also has really, really good chemistry with Brad Pitt in the scenes that he shares with him. And, he sells his character. He's great. And of the supporting performances, Tobey Maguire is great and creepy in his role. He shows up for like 10 minutes. He's, very, very good in that 10 minutes. So is Ethan Suplee, who's in that same 10 minutes. I miss him. I like Ethan Suplee. Whenever he shows up in anything. Catherine Waterston, love her. She's great. Okay. Now to move on to the writing and the structure and everything. For the first like half of the movie, maybe a little shorter than a half, maybe like for the first like hour of the movie, we're just being introduced to this place as and to the setting in general as like crazy party Hollywood. The comedy is raunchy, it's over the top. I think that's super interesting to have like essentially like it's a prestige film. This is Oscar bait. It's an Oscar bait movie. It's about Hollywood, whatever. But it's prestige cinema that's being made. But the sense of humor is so juvenile. It's like raunchy. It's slapstick. It's perverted and it's so fun. I love it. I love this kind of shit. Like I saw Funny Pages earlier this year. It's one of my favorite movies of the year. Stuff like that. I genuinely love this style of comedy, and it works for me, but it might be a turnoff to a lot of other people. And I think it is very appropriate for the time because obviously, especially the more like, physical comedy slapstick stuff, that is silent film. A lot of silent film comedy, I mean, pretty much all silent film comedy had to be slapstick. So, I mean, it is representative of the time, and Damien Chazelle is obviously just paying homage to all of the great comedy and film from that era. So, if you're not into that, then I don't know, it sucks. But yeah. So it's interesting to see that. Anyways, the first hour or so is that, and then we get more into the actual industry shifting. I'm so sorry about the beeping in the background, by the way. We get more into the industry shifting, and that is super interesting. The very first scene where they're filming a on a set that has sound is a hilarious scene, but it also it's hilarious and it's super relatable to somebody like me as a filmmaker. I've been in similar situations, but then also it also just really, really nails like what it must have felt like at the time to have this whole new element of an art form that has been done for, at this point, decades. And to introduce this whole new element to it, and how weird and that would have felt, and how much of a major shift that was. So we get to see more and more of the ins and outs of the actual productions, and then the politics of Hollywood at the time, and that was all really cool. And then in the final act, we start to see kind of the repercussions of all of these changes that are being made and how they affect our main characters. This is where the movie turns a bit more tragic, which don't worry about spoilers. This movie isn't the type you're gonna be fine if it's spoiled. It's not like twist and turn type of movie. It's very, very straightforward. You know what's gonna happen. And and I thought that was all handled very, very well. I am definitely there are people who are way, way more critical of this movie than I am. I just think it was a perfect style of movie for me. I understand that it's not going to work for everybody. The sense of humor might not work. There are a lot of people complaining it's too long. I think it's fine the length it is. This is a movie that needs to be long. It is an epic with an ensemble cast that's rise and fall of many of these characters. It's just it's kind of made to be a exact what's the word I'm looking for? it's bombastic, it's huge, it's yeah, it's supposed to be Damien Chazelle's epic, which is unfortunate that it's bombing so hard at the box office. But yeah, so I don't really have any complaints about the length, but I understand that's a complaint for a lot of people. And honestly, I don't know. I think if you see the movie, the length won't be a huge issue because the movie is interesting. Even if you even if you don't particularly love it, I can't see a whole lot of people walking out with the complaint that it's boring. It's very much like Wolf of Wall Street in that way, where like it moves so fast and there's so much going on that like people can hate the Wolf of Wall Street, but you're not going to walk out of it thinking it was like boring at all, right? Like it's kind of how I feel about this movie. It's like even if you hate it, it's all interesting. Yeah. Um I think I'm trying to think if there's anything else I want to say about this movie. The score. Okay, let me just talk about the technical aspects because these are really easy to talk about. Costumes, set design, all beautiful, all amazing. Cinematography is extremely beautiful. Absolutely loved it. The score is, I mean, it's Justin Hurwitz again, and him and Damien Chazelle totally understand how to utilize a score in a film, and especially a hummable score. This you don't see as much of this in Hollywood anymore. But yeah, like having themes associated with characters or character relationships, and then something you can remember. Anytime you see Diego Calva and Margot Robbie together on screen, there's a song that pops up, and you, while watching the movie for the first time, can start to hum along to that song. Like it's immediately recognizable, and it makes you feel, because you become like your brain, you become familiar with that score, that like piece of music. You're becoming familiar with the characters and their relationship, and so when you hear that piece of music, it's like a comforting, pleasant thing, and so you look forward to any time they're on screen. Also, it helps that the actors have good chemistry and that the writing's good, but it's just an added element of the romance of it, and why it feels good to have the romance scene. It would suck if every time your characters are on screen, you don't want them to be on screen together because the romance doesn't work, but it does, and a big part of that is because of the music that plays. And so, that's what these things help with. That's what a memorable score does. And I think that's what a lot of people are missing right now. People, I mean, I don't know. I grew up with the Sam Raimi Spider-Man movies, and those were like my favorite movies when I was a kid. And like Toy Story and a lot of Pixar movies, they understood this, of like a memorable score and something that you can remember after you watch the movie, you can hum, is really, really cool. And it makes your movie all the more powerful. And so I think that's something that these filmmakers, or Damien Chazelle and Justin Hurwitz, really, really understand, and that's really, really cool. So that really helped. Yeah, I'm trying to think if there's anything else from this movie I want to talk about. Sorry. The ending is really interesting. Very interesting ending. Damien Chazelle knows how to end a movie. Just think about Whiplash and La La. I cannot remember the ending of First Man, so have to go back and rewatch that. But La La Land and Whiplash had very, very powerful endings. Very good endings. And this movie might have... It's an ending that might be controversial to some. I haven't seen a ton of people being like, fucking hate the ending, but I could see it if people saw the movie. like if there were more people seeing the movie, I could see people having an issue with the ending. But as it is right now, I think most of the people seeing the movie are people like me who will like the ending. I want to see it again, preferably in theaters, because I know this will never... After it's done with its run now, it won't see another day in theaters. I don't think. I would be surprised if it did. Unless it became like a hit later on, like years later, it was like one of those movies like, oh, we didn't appreciate it at the time, but I don't know. I want to see it again in theaters, and so within the next week or so, I'll go see it again, and we'll see if I have anything new to say about it. But I mostly want to see it again for the ending, because I want to. I think I understand what it's going for, but or like I think I understand what it's saying, but I just want to feel like I fully grasp it. It's really cool though. The movie, you know, it tackles time and art and their relationship with each other, and I guess the people that make them, the people that make art and their relationship with time is incredibly fascinating. And I think Damien Chazelle with this film is hitting on something that I haven't quite seen represented as well in other films. But maybe I'm missing something from another movie. I don't know. But it is it does make you consider where you are in relation to time, and I don't know, it's really interesting. It's kind of, oh, you know what else did that a little bit? I don't think it did it as well because it wasn't as subtle, because it's in the name, is At Eternity's Gate. That's the movie with about Van Gogh. But that movie does the time art thing as well. And that was cool. I did love that movie. It wasn't as I think this movie does it a little bit more nuanced. From what I remember, I only saw At Eternity's Gate once. I need to rewatch it. That was like, 4 years ago at this point. But yeah, I really, really did think it ended on a very interesting note, and it makes you think about its themes, which, with the music and the performances, and I just had a great time watching the film. The fact that it leaves you thinking about something, with something to consider beyond the film. In my head, that makes it a great film. And I did truly love it. So I'll see it again. If I have anything new to say after seeing it again, I'll report back. But those are my thoughts on Babylon. Sorry about the beeping. Okay. Cool. We reviewed Babylon.